On February 11, 1990, one punch rewrote boxing history. That night in Tokyo, James "Buster" Douglas knocked out the undefeated Mike Tyson and delivered the biggest upset the sport had ever seen. Overnight, he was a global sensation, the man who conquered the monster. But while the world cheered, a storm was already gathering behind the scenes. Fame, pressure, and heartbreak would soon consume him.
Felt so good, it was like I'm gonna have a moment to reflect, like, I stopped punching and looking at him like, what?
He spiraled into depression, gained nearly 400 pounds, and faded into silence. By the mid-1990s, the man who shocked the world was no longer part of it. This is the tragic story of Buster Douglas, the man who beat Tyson and couldn't beat what came after. Buster Douglas was born on April 7, 1960, in Columbus, Ohio. His home was one where fighting wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. His father, William "Dynamite" Douglas, had made a name for himself as a tough middleweight contender in the 1970s. He pushed Buster hard and showed little affection. To him, raising a fighter meant no softness, no comfort. That pressure shaped Buster into a boxer, but it also fractured their bond for years. As a boy, Buster wanted to play basketball, not box. He had the size and skills of a future NBA player and even played at Coffeyville Community College and later at Mercyhurst University. But eventually, he gave up basketball and returned to Columbus. Boxing wasn't a dream. It felt more like destiny, forced upon him by the weight of his father's expectations. Buster didn't have his father's fire. Coaches saw him as gifted but lazy. He needed constant encouragement to push himself. But when he showed up, he was a nightmare for his opponents. Long arms, a strong jab, and nimble feet for a man his size. Yet questions about his heart followed him everywhere. His father wasn't kind, training was brutal, and encouragement was non-existent. "You don't have the fire," Dynamite once told him. The words cut deep. Buster carried that pain with him for years. He turned professional in the early 1980s, but his rise was slow. He wasn't hyped like other young stars. He learned the hard way, through tough fights. He won most, but lost a few, gaining a reputation as a talented but unreliable gatekeeper. The problem was never physical, it was mental. He didn't believe in himself. Deep down, he was still chasing his father's approval. That desire would fuel him years later, on the night he changed everything. In the late 1980s, Buster was climbing the ranks, but just barely. His tools were there, but the fire wasn't. Fighters like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, and Riddick Bowe dominated the division. Douglas was seen as a decent opponent, but never a real threat. In 1987, he faced Tony Tucker in an IBF title eliminator. For most of the fight, Buster was winning. But in round 10, he lost focus and was stopped. The loss confirmed what people believed. Buster Douglas couldn't close. Writers called him the most talented underachiever in boxing. His weight fluctuated wildly between fights. His trainers begged him to take things seriously. One of them later said he needed something tragic to wake him up. That moment came in 1990. Just before his scheduled fight with Tyson, Buster's mother, Lula Pearl Douglas, died suddenly from a stroke. She had been his biggest supporter, the one who believed in him no matter what. Her death shattered him. The media expected him to pull out of the fight, but he didn't. He stayed in camp. This time, something inside him changed. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about proving his worth and honoring the woman who believed in him when no one else did. For once, everything clicked. His heart, his body, and his mind. Still, Nobody gave him a chance. He was a 42-1 underdog. Most thought the fight would be over in a few minutes, but Buster knew something they didn't. He was grieving, focused, and determined. February 11, 1990, the Tokyo Dome. Fans sat quietly, expecting an easy Tyson victory. Tyson entered like a machine. No robe, no socks, just menace. But from the first round, something was off. Tyson looked distracted, out of shape, and slow. Douglas, on the other hand, looked better than ever. At 231 pounds, he moved with purpose. He used his jab, kept his distance, and boxed smart. By round 5, Tyson's eye had started to swell. In round 8, Tyson landed a powerful uppercut that dropped Buster. For a moment, it looked like it was over, but Buster got up. And then, in round 10, everything changed. Douglas hit Tyson with a brutal combination, an uppercut, followed by a left and right. Tyson went down. He fumbled for his mouthpiece, got up too late, and the referee counted him out. The world was stunned. Even Muhammad Ali, watching from ringside, said he had never seen anything like it. Sports Illustrated ran a cover with one word: shock. Buster Douglas had done the impossible. He was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. For a brief moment, the world celebrated him. But that moment didn't last. Instead of marking the start of a new reign, his victory became the peak of his career. He was not ready for the fame that followed. Unlike Tyson, he had no team to manage the spotlight. He was flooded with money, media, and pressure. He started gaining weight. By the time he faced Evander Holyfield 8 months later, he weighed 246 pounds, 15 more than when he beat Tyson. He looked out of shape, tired, and unfocused. Behind the scenes, he was barely training. He was enjoying his new wealth, buying luxury cars, homes, and traveling the world. But deep inside, he was still broken from the loss of his mother. On October 25, 1990, he stepped into the ring with Holyfield. From the opening round, it was obvious. Douglas wasn't the same fighter. He moved slowly, lacked energy, and barely used the jab that had defeated Tyson. In round 4, Holyfield landed a clean right hand to Douglas's chin. Buster collapsed. He didn't get up. The world was brutal in its response. They called him lazy, accused him of quitting, and mocked his fall. Even though he earned $24 million from the fight, the highest purse at that time, it didn't buy back his respect. He didn't argue or defend himself. He simply vanished. After that fight, Buster Douglas returned to Ohio and disappeared from public view. He stopped training, stopped doing interviews, and the weight kept piling on. By the mid-1990s, he weighed nearly 400 pounds. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and suffered from dangerously high blood pressure. He was even hospitalized several times. One day, he slipped into a diabetic coma. His family feared the worst, but somehow, he survived. And when he woke up, he told them, "I'm not going out like this." In 1996, 6 years after his defeat to Holyfield, Buster Douglas shocked everyone again. He returned to boxing. He lost nearly 100 pounds and started training in a small gym in Columbus. He wasn't aiming for a title. He just wanted to prove that he wasn't finished. But the comeback didn't catch fire. He won some fights, but against lesser opponents. His speed and strength were no longer the same. In 1999, he fought for the last time. There was no celebration, no farewell, just a quiet end to a quiet return. The world had moved on. Tyson's legacy was being rebuilt. Holyfield was becoming a legend. Lennox Lewis ruled the division. But Buster Douglas, once the most famous man in sports, was forgotten. By the early 2000s, he was living quietly in Columbus. He stayed out of the spotlight. He didn't appear at major events or get invited to boxing shows. He gave only a few interviews, most of them local. The money from the Holyfield fight was gone. He had never been flashy, but he hadn't been careful either. He didn't build a brand. He didn't make investments. He just lived quietly and alone. Now, he spends time with his grandchildren. He visits the gym. And when people recognize him, he sometimes smiles. But the sadness never goes away. He once stood over Mike Tyson, crowned king of boxing. Now he walks with a limp, his voice soft, his story misunderstood. The man who gave us the greatest underdog story in sports never got the ending he deserved. And that, more than anything, is the real tragedy.